What's up, guys? Let's talk about it. Diablo 4 Season 4 is actually going to have a major issue with its retention rate, and I'm going to go ahead and actually explain why. This is the major problem of Season 4 that I wanted to bring to the table. Even though we don't even have Season 3 yet, I want to bring this up now. And the reason why I want to bring this up right now as a Diablo partner is to give them enough time to maybe address this huge concern for the game, especially with Season 4. And the reason why I'm bringing it up now is because, if you guys didn't know, there are two different teams working on the seasons for Diablo. There's Team A and Team B. Basically, when Season 3 is being worked on, Season 4 is also being worked on. That gives them enough time to try to get everything ready, so there is enough time to basically have two different seasons kind of come out and cycle through and give them enough time to develop the content for. And the reason why I want to bring this up now is because what you're seeing right here is posted over at the Blizzard headquarters, which is actually for the people that are working on the game, and this is one of their post-launch goals. Is kind of like their pillars right here. And one of the most important pillars is refreshing the meta. And why is this important? So obviously it comes down to player retention rate. If we were having the same skills be the exact same way that they are in the previous season, well, no one's going to realistically want to stick around for a long time. That is a big issue already in the current state of Diablo 4 with retention rate, right? Like, why would I want to make a new Hoda barb in the next season if, let's say, Hoda is really good right now? In the next season, well, I'm just going to have to level up to what? Play the same exact thing. This is a huge issue if we look at any of the websites. This is Solidome. It basically tracks like the retention rate in terms of streamers, in terms of them actually watching the game. And it's normal for any video game as time goes on. You know, like there's a new season, the game launches, everyone kind of dips down, and then, okay, there's a new season, people hop back in, and then, you know, kind of dies down. And, you know, there's like other updates, people come back into the game, so on and so forth, right? But retention rate is a huge thing with Diablo in general. And while we don't have the full numbers, now this is just Steam charts over here, just looking at this, we can see kind of like, you know, the retention rate, again, when there's a new season or announcement, people come back and then it slowly dies off. This is relevant with like any action RPG, okay? So it's not just Diablo. Keeping people in for a game as a live service is very important, because if they're releasing new skins as the season goes on, obviously if people stop playing the game, well, all of that is essentially wasted, right? So it's very important to keep people interested for the entirety of the season for games as a service. So this is very important. We're looking at specifically the pillar that says refresh the meta. And the reason why I think this is very important to mention now for the team to actually take into consideration is the way that this game is designed. If we looked at, Maxroll, any website that has any of the best builds, it is pretty much Hoda Barb and Ball Lightning Sorceress. Ball Lightning Sorceress kind of causes a server lag, so it's kind of hard for a lot of players to play that build. So Barbarian is widely seen as pretty much the best build in the entire game. If we look at basically the Barbarian builds, right now it's mainly just the Hoda Barbarian, right? So if they want to refresh the meta, obviously that means, okay, Hoda Barb, great Season 2. Season 3, we need to make the other skills meta. And so if we were to look at the design of the way the skill tree is designed, it's actually similar to Diablo 3 in the way that you have your things dealing damage. You have your basic skills, your generators, and then you have your core skills, right? And then you have maybe a couple buffs, and you have some sort of utility, maybe to break crowd control or group up enemies. And then you have some sort of other skills that have some sort of a long cooldown. Like, for example, there is even uniques that can work well with Steel Grasp, giving it massive amount of ranks, but you're not going to be able to make a Steel Grasp build. But this is something that may actually need to exist in Season 4. Otherwise, we aren't going to be able to essentially refresh the meta. And this goes with every single class. And then you have your ultimates, and you're not going to be able to just keep on spamming your ultimate for the most part. Yeah, you could run Flicker Step, and for some builds you can have your ultimate up more often, but there's a lot of builds where the ultimate skill doesn't even do as much damage as like the regular skill. You could take like Ball Lightning Sorceress, for example. Look at how much damage some of the things will actually deal in terms of damage. Like if you compare Ball Lightning with a ultimate skill Inferno, it's not even close in terms of what it can do. So there is kind of baked in problems with the way that the game is actually designed in the current state, which is basically you have your core skills being the main focus of any Diablo build, right? Like, for example, you cannot just make a Barbarian build that is only Rupture only, right? Because it has a cooldown. It's baked into the way that the game is designed. Unless you just delete the cooldown, which would be one way to maybe fix it. But you cannot just make it so, okay, I'm going to just spam time, let's say charge. Sure, there's like a leap quick barbarian, but compare that to an actual like barbarian build that even uses double swing, or if you compare it to like a Hoda barb, it's nowhere near the same level, right? And that's because the way that the game is designed is for the core skills to be the main focus. Now, right now, I would say most of the barbarian skills are okay because Barbarian's a little bit overtuned, but pretty much no one really plays Whirlwind or Rend. I know Whirlwind is seeing some play because you can do the weapon swap thing and then it swaps the weapons and then you can get overpower and stuff like that for the Hoda Barb, but it's still basically a Hoda Barb build. So let's say right now in this current season, right, where Upheaval and Double Swing are like okay-ish skills, and then we have Hammer of the Ancients being the best skill for Season 2. Let's say we go into Season 3, they nerf Hammer of the Ancients, and maybe they keep these the same, and then they heavily buff Whirlwind and Rend to make these the star players. These are the new core skills. They are essentially refreshing the meta, the way that they have designed the game, and let's say that these become the meta skills. Okay, so in Season 3, Whirlwind, Rend, S tier skills, right? These are the best barbarian builds. So then in Season 4, what actually becomes the meta? Well, they have to refresh the meta. It's in their core design. And then we have Rend and Whirlwind being nerfed. And then what do? We go back to playing Hoda double swing maybe? And this applies to most of the classes. If we were to say, look at the Druid, right? Tornado's already seen play if we go to Season 0 and Season 1. We go to, like, let's say Tornado Pulverize. These were relatively popular. And Shred got kind of popular in Season 2. And then in Season 3, okay, well, then we have Lightning Storm, Landslide. Okay, so these are the meta skills for Season 3. Then we go to Season 4. Okay, what do? We go back to it. And that is going to be a big issue when we look at any sort of retention rate for the game itself, meaning that, well, if people are essentially playing the same thing, they're not going to want to stick around. So I think this is a big issue. We can even look at, let's say, Rogue, for example, in Season 0, 1, 2, and even maybe in Season 3, Twisting Blades will just be like the most dominant skill. The only skill that really doesn't see play, because Rapid Fire Barrage, they're very similar, right? And there's even Rapid Fire Pen Shot. The only skill that's considered like bad for most people is going to be Flurry. It just simply doesn't deal enough damage. So Season 3 comes around, they're like, okay, Flurry is the new meta skill. Then in Season 4, well, we're just going to go back to what? Twisting Blades. Again, this is the huge thing and it applies to all of the classes because core skills are the only things that can realistically deal damage. If we look at the way that the game was designed, that's basically baked into almost every single class. Your core skills, your damage dealer. Now, there are a lot of different aspects that can't really see play at endgame. For example, some of you guys might not have known this, but Ravager's aspect is something that lets Shadow Step actually gain more and more damage. Now, it does have a cap, so if they just removed the cap or made this thing just go astronomically high in terms of numbers, it could be a build. Now, if you play in the areas, let's say you go to like World Tier 1, you can actually make a Ravager's aspect build with a Shadow Step build that teleports in one-shots. It's actually really cool. And so this is my major concern. If they don't address this, we are essentially going to go back to the exact same thing that we were playing in Season 1 and 2, which some people are already kind of feeling the repetitiveness of Diablo 4 already existing. And if we go back and have to play the same thing that was meta, maybe even one season ago, people may get tired of it. There's a lot of skills that like see zero play. Like, do you see anyone making a Caltrops build? No. And there's a lot of uniques that exist in the game that no one realistically plays. Again, looking at Rogue, there's a bunch of buffs for your core skills essentially here. I mean, yeah, it can proc on other things, and then you have your ultimates here. There really isn't like a way where you can make just a pure trapper build, right? And so a lot of changes need to come in Season 4 in order to keep players' retention rate. And I wanted to bring this up because I think it's a great point of discussion for the future of Diablo, because it's a huge thing when I see players saying, well, I'm just going to go wait until next season and I'll play next season because I'm already finished with this season, and that's not good, again, as a game as a service. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of ask you guys some ideas, but I had some of my own in terms of adding more of a mix-up to essentially refresh the meta. So Diablo 2 had rune words, and yes, rune words are awesome, and I would love to see them just be like, okay, Season 4 guys, we're going to add rune words, we're going to add set items to the game. That'd be great. That would essentially refresh the meta. We'd have a lot of content. But the way that the game is looking like right now, we're getting maybe one legendary aspect per class, maybe one uber unique, and then that's going to be what the season looks like. And while I would love to see them to say, hey, there's going to be 20 more uniques and they're going to be available for all classes to go ahead and make builds with, another solution that would be a little bit easier is maybe adding things from other classes. For example, in Diablo 2, there were rune words that would give you skills from other classes, like Beast over here, or even Wolf Howl, which would let your Barbarian turn into a werewolf. Now, I'm not sure if this would be too difficult for them because like the thing already exists in the game, right? But certain things that would allow us to maybe shoot out a fireball as a rogue, or a specific unique that allowed some sort of a more unique playstyle in the game would essentially let us refresh the meta. Again, otherwise we're going back and playing the same exact thing that we were playing before. And I think this is a huge thing, especially because there are some more unique things that they didn't really fully test. For example, if anyone has tried to play like a crackling energy sorceress, it's basically impossible if you want to go do Abattoir of Zir, or if you wanted to actually build a sorceress that is a lightning nova, which is using a unique item called Esidora's Overflowing Cameo. It genuinely does not function. There's also a druid build that makes it so boulder becomes a core skill, but if you tried that in the end game, these are not tested enough. Has anyone tried to play a human boulder druid with the brand new Dolmen Stone? Let me know if you've actually tried it, because it simply does not work if you're trying to even do level 1 or Sigil 100 and or Abattoir of Zir. It's nowhere near the power it needs to be. So I'm kind of giving them the heads up on some of these more interesting ideas that they have actually kind of experimented on, but they're not tested enough and they don't do enough damage. And I've actually mentioned this a few different times, but like some of these other things where you can get a lot of damage via like int stacking. There's one for the sorceress, I believe it's on the Paragon board, and there is something where you can actually gain extra damage per amount of intelligence for crackling energy, but it simply, again, does not work in the later stages of the game. And if we continue the same route where, let's say, again, Incinerate becomes the meta in the next season, in terms of the core skills, Sorceress, though, I'll give Sorceress kind of an extra pass on this, because Ball Lightning, well, it's probably going to be deleted out of the next season because it just causes server lag. We have things like Firewall or maybe Meteor. Maybe these could be meta in the next season. Blizzard has already considered meta in some state of the games in season like 0. But let's say Meteor and Firewall and Incinerate are the new things in season 3. Then in season 4, we're going to have to go back. Maybe we could go back and make Frozen Orb like the most meta skill, because I believe this is the one core skill that doesn't really see too much play. People sometimes run it as a enchant, but for the most part, Sorceress might have another life cycle, right? Because a lot of people may play 2 characters per season, I'd say is kind of on average what people play. And if by the time we hit season 4, most people have probably played all of the classes and gotten them to level 100. I don't know the official numbers, but I just know, like, in terms of like my community, most people have played a lot of the classes already, and retention rate is going to be a huge thing to actually hit in the next upcoming seasons. Again, I know Solinum doesn't have the official numbers, but the only other official number that we can use is Steam charts, which most people that play Diablo, more than likely they're playing on the Battle.net client. So don't take this as like, oh, there's only 28,000 people as the peak. I'm sure it's much higher than that, but there's no official numbers. You can use like Active Player IO, but some of these aren't very accurate. But I think there is definitely a direct correlation with how many people are actually watching any game on stream for the most part, and how many people are actually playing the game. That there is definitely some correlation with that. And by looking at the numbers here, a lot of people may not actually give this game another chance if it is going to be a game where we're essentially going back and we're just basically going, okay, let's use Barbarian because a lot of people are playing Barb this season. So Hoda is super popular, people are loving it. Okay, we're gonna delete it out of the game next season to refresh the meta, and then we go back to it again. People are like, well, I've already kind of played the thing, I want to do something new. They'll play it for maybe a week, and then they swap back to whatever other game that they're playing. And I think this is a huge concern that I would like to see addressed. And I think one excellent way to do it is to actually add uniques that have skills from another class that can be applied, and maybe people can make up some really cool ideas. I think there could be a little bit more creativity in Diablo 4 in terms of the way that the game is designed. But that's the way I look at it for Season 4, and it's always good to look ahead. Again, since there's 2 different teams working on it, they're already working on Season 4 at this point more than likely, and that way it could be ready for us when the time is ready. But I'd love to know, what other solutions do you guys have, or what are your guys' thoughts on this whole idea of, well, if they are refreshing the meta, we're going to essentially go back into playing the same skill that we actually played in the previous season. Is that okay with you? Because I'm at this point, I've already basically played everything in the game for the most part. I've tried all the core skills because most builds don't have like a basic build. Sure, there is that special unique amulet that lets Frenzy do more damage and gains more stacks, but have you actually tried to play it? It's realistically not actually viable. Even if you use, let's say, what is it, Moonrise, it's nowhere near the same power level as a core skill because the numbers just simply don't let you play any build that's not a core skill in the way that it's designed. So I'd like to see this change. Anyways, that's gonna wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you're new here, subscribe, turn on the bell, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace out.